There is something powerful about becoming someone nobody saw coming. You don't need to tell people what you're building. You don't need to announce your next move, explain your goals, or convince everyone that you're about to change your life. In fact, sometimes the moment you reveal your plans is the moment the noise begins. Suddenly, everyone has an opinion. Someone tells you it's unrealistic. Someone questions your ability. Someone laughs because they remember who you used to be. Someone else gives you advice you never asked for. And slowly, without even realizing it, your attention moves away from the work and toward other people's reactions. You begin explaining instead of executing, defending instead of building, talking instead of becoming. There is another danger in constantly announcing your goals. Sometimes, talking about what you're going to accomplish can give you the emotional satisfaction of accomplishment before you've actually done the work. You tell people you're going to start the business. You tell them you're going to get in shape. You tell them you're writing the book, changing your career, becoming financially independent, or completely transforming your life. They congratulate you. They praise your ambition. For a moment, you feel like you've already arrived. But the applause was real while the achievement was still imaginary. And that's where many dreams quietly die, not because the person lacked potential, but because they received the reward before they completed the journey. So, what if you did something different this time? What if you stopped announcing the life you're building and simply started building it? What if you became comfortable with being misunderstood? What if you allowed people to underestimate you while you quietly developed the skills, discipline, habits, and character required to change your life? Imagine working when nobody is watching, studying when nobody knows, saving money when nobody understands why, improving your body, your mind, your career, and your future without needing anyone to applaud you. There is a strange freedom in that kind of silence. Because you don't need everyone to believe in your vision. You need to believe in it enough to work for it. You don't need to explain every decision. You need the discipline to keep making the right ones. And you don't need to tell the world who you're becoming. Let the results tell them. Let the finished work speak. Let the transformation become impossible to ignore. This is the power of moving in silence. It isn't about hiding because you're afraid. It isn't about becoming distant or secretive. It is about protecting something while it is still growing. A seed doesn't need an audience while it is underground. It needs time, darkness, patience, and nourishment. And perhaps your next chapter needs the same. So for the next 30 minutes, forget the need to announce yourself. Forget the need for approval. Forget the temptation to explain what you're about to do. Instead, learn how to protect your energy, strengthen your discipline, and build privately until your results are the only announcement you need. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say about your future is nothing. Just disappear into the work and come back different. Chapter 1. The Power of Moving in Silence. There is a different kind of strength that comes from moving in silence. It is not the silence of fear. It is not the silence of weakness, and it is not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. It is the silence of someone who has finally realized that their energy is too valuable to spend explaining themselves to everyone around them. When you stop announcing every goal, every decision, and every move, something begins to change inside you. Your attention returns to where it belongs, on the work, on the process, on the person you are becoming. Think about how much energy people waste trying to make others understand them. They explain why they're changing careers. They explain why they're leaving certain relationships. They explain why they're saving money instead of spending it. They explain why they're waking up earlier, working longer, studying harder, or choosing a completely different direction in life. And sometimes, the more they explain, the more opinions they receive. One person says you're being unrealistic. Another says you're taking things too seriously. Someone else tells you that you should stay exactly where you are because they are comfortable with the version of you they already know. But here's the truth. People often judge your future using the evidence of your past. They remember your failures. They remember your mistakes. They remember the person you were years ago. So when you tell them about the person you're becoming, they naturally compare that vision with the version of you they already understand. They may not be able to see what you can see because they haven't experienced the transformation yet. And that is okay. Their inability to see your future does not make your future impossible. This is why silence can become a form of protection. When you keep your plans private, you remove unnecessary voices from the construction site of your life. Imagine trying to build a house while inviting hundreds of strangers to walk through the foundation every day and tell you where they think the walls should go. You would never finish. Yet people do this emotionally all the time. They begin something meaningful, then immediately open the doors to everyone's opinions. They ask, "What do you think? Do you think I can do this? Should I really take this opportunity?" And before long, their original conviction becomes buried underneath the opinions of other people. Moving in silence allows you to hear your own thoughts again. It gives you space to make decisions without constantly performing them for an audience. You can change your strategy without having to announce that your original strategy failed. You can make mistakes without explaining them. You can start over without telling anyone. You can experiment, adjust, learn, and grow without the pressure of proving yourself every step of the way. And that freedom is incredibly powerful, because when nobody knows exactly what you're doing, you don't have to maintain an image. You don't have to pretend that everything is working. You don't have to protect an announcement you made 6 months ago. You are free to change direction when new information appears. You are free to become better. There is also something psychologically powerful about directing your attention away from recognition and toward progress. Every time you complete something meaningful, you don't need to immediately tell someone. You can allow yourself to experience the satisfaction privately. You can look at your progress and simply think, "I'm getting better." That quiet satisfaction is different from external validation. It builds internal confidence, and internal confidence is far more durable than applause. Applause disappears. Compliments fade. Social media attention moves on to the next person. But the discipline you develop when nobody is watching stays with you. The knowledge you gain stays with you. The strength you build stays with you. The character you develop stays with you. This is why some of the most important seasons of your life may look completely unimpressive from the outside. Nobody sees the mornings when you wake up early. Nobody sees the nights when you choose work instead of entertainment. Nobody sees the money you refuse to spend because you're building something bigger. Nobody sees the hours you spend learning a skill that hasn't paid you yet. Nobody sees the moments when you are exhausted, but choose to continue anyway. And perhaps they don't need to. Your responsibility is not to make everyone witness the process. Your responsibility is to complete it. Think about a seed beneath the soil. From the surface, nothing appears to be happening. There is no applause, no evidence, no visible transformation. But underneath the surface, roots are forming. The foundation is developing. The seed is becoming something it could not have been before. Your life can have seasons like that. A season where you look ordinary while becoming extraordinary. A season where you are quiet because you are focused. A season where people assume nothing is happening because they cannot see the work. Don't let their lack of visibility convince you that you're not making progress. Some of the greatest transformations happen where nobody is looking. So stop feeling the need to announce every chapter before you've finished writing it. Stop telling everyone what you're going to become. Stop giving strangers a front row seat to a transformation that is still fragile. Protect your attention. Protect your peace. Protect your unfinished goals. You don't have to disappear from the world forever. You simply have to stop giving the world access to every thought, every plan, and every move. Work quietly. Learn quietly. improve quietly, build quietly, and when the time comes, you won't have to explain what happened. They will see it, because there is a level of success that words cannot create. Only results can. And when your results finally speak, they won't need an introduction. Chapter 2. Why you should stop explaining yourself. One of the hardest things to learn as you grow is that you do not have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to justify every decision. You don't have to convince people that your goals are valid. And you certainly don't have to spend your life trying to make everyone understand the direction you're taking. There comes a point when you realize that every explanation is an invitation for another opinion. You explain your decision, someone questions it. You explain again, they disagree. You defend yourself, they challenge you again. And suddenly, something that was once simple has become a debate. But your life is not a courtroom. You are not on trial every time you make a different choice. You don't need to present evidence proving that your dream is realistic. You don't need to convince someone that you're capable. You don't need permission to become a different version of yourself. Think about how often people explain themselves because they are afraid of being misunderstood. They say, "I'm not ignoring you. I'm just focused. I'm not being distant. I'm working on myself. I'm not spending money because I'm saving for something bigger. I'm not taking the easy path because I have a different goal." They explain and explain because they want everyone to approve of the transformation. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you explain yourself. You could give them every detail. You could explain your reasoning perfectly. You could show them your plans, your research, your goals, and your intentions. And they could still decide that you're making the wrong choice. Not because your explanation was insufficient, but because they are viewing your life through their own experiences, fears, expectations, and limitations. And that's something you have to accept. You cannot control how people interpret you. You can only control how you live. There is tremendous freedom in allowing yourself to be misunderstood. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You may want to correct every false assumption. You may want to respond whenever someone doubts you. You may feel the urge to say, "If you only knew what I'm working on, you would understand." But eventually, you realize something important. You don't need them to understand yet. Let them think you're ordinary. Let them think you're taking too long. Let them think your plans are unrealistic. Let them wonder why you've become quieter. You don't have to interrupt their assumptions, because while they are forming opinions about the person you are today, you can be building the person you will become tomorrow. This is especially important when you are working towards something that takes time. When the results aren't visible yet, people naturally judge the process by what they can see. If you're learning a new skill, they see you practicing, but they don't see the mastery that is coming. If you're building a business, they see the early struggles, but they don't see the years of consistency that may eventually create something meaningful. If you're changing your life, they see the awkward beginning, but they don't see the finished transformation. That's why you should be careful about explaining unfinished work. An unfinished dream is fragile. It needs protection, not constant exposure. When you repeatedly talk about something before you've built it, you create pressure to perform for other people. Now you're not only trying to accomplish the goal, you're trying to prove that your announcement was correct. And that can make failure feel much more painful than it needs to be. Imagine telling everyone that you're going to achieve something by a certain date. Then life changes. Something goes wrong. You need more time. Your strategy doesn't work. You discover that you underestimated the difficulty. Suddenly, instead of quietly adjusting your plan, you feel embarrassed because other people know about it. That embarrassment can cause people to quit. But if you had kept the goal private, failure would simply have been information. You would adjust. You would learn. You would continue. No announcement would need to be defended. This is one of the hidden advantages of privacy. It gives you room to fail intelligently. You can experiment without an audience. You can change direction without explaining why. You can start again without announcing that you started over. You can take your time. And sometimes taking your time is exactly what your transformation requires. Stop trying to make everyone understand the person you're becoming. You don't need to explain why you're working harder. You don't need to explain why you're leaving behind old habits. You don't need to explain why your priorities have changed. Your behavior will eventually become the explanation. Because there is a difference between telling people you've changed and becoming someone who behaves differently. Anyone can make an announcement. Anyone can make a promise. Anyone can describe the future. But eventually, reality reveals who actually did the work. So let your actions become your language. If you're becoming more disciplined, let your consistency show it. If you're becoming stronger, let your endurance show it. If you're becoming wiser, let your decisions show it. If you're becoming successful, let your results show it. You don't have to keep saying, I'm changing. Change. You don't have to keep saying, I'm working hard. Work. You don't have to keep saying, one day I'm going to make it. Build until one day becomes today. And when someone finally asks, what happened to you? You won't need a long explanation. You can simply smile, because the person they are looking at is the explanation. Your transformation will speak for you. Your discipline will speak for you. Your results will speak for you. And perhaps that is one of the most powerful forms of communication in the world. Not being able to explain yourself perfectly, but becoming so different that no explanation is necessary. Chapter 3. Oversharing can steal your momentum. There is a hidden cost to talking too much about what you are going to do. At first, it feels harmless. You tell someone about the business you're planning to start. You talk about the book you're going to write. You announce that you're going to get serious about your health, your finances, your career, or your future. You describe the person you're becoming with so much excitement that, for a moment, you can almost feel as if you've already arrived, and that feeling is dangerous. Not because talking is always bad, but because sometimes the conversation gives you the emotional reward that should have come from the accomplishment itself. You haven't built the business yet, but people congratulate you for your entrepreneurial vision. You haven't finished the book, but people tell you how talented you are. You haven't transformed your life, but people praise you for your determination. And suddenly, your mind receives something it was supposed to receive only after the work was completed. Recognition. This is where momentum can quietly disappear. Your brain doesn't always care whether the reward comes from achievement or from talking about achievement. The excitement of announcing a goal can create a temporary feeling of progress. You feel motivated. You feel important. You feel like something significant is happening. But then the conversation ends. The excitement fades. And you're left with the same unfinished work sitting in front of you. This is why you must learn to distinguish between the feeling of progress and the reality of progress and the reality of progress. Talking about the mountain is not climbing the mountain. Planning the workout is not doing the workout. Researching the business is not building the business. Talking about discipline is not discipline. And announcing the future version of yourself does not make you that person. The world is full of people who are extremely good at describing the life they want, but strangely inconsistent at building it. They have the vocabulary of success. They know the motivational quotes. They know what they should do. They can explain their 5-year plan in perfect detail. But when nobody is listening, the execution disappears. And that's where you need to become different. Stop measuring your progress by how motivated you feel after talking about your goals. Measure it by what you actually did when nobody was watching. Did you complete the work? Did you keep the promise you made to yourself? Did you show up when you didn't feel like it? Did you continue when the excitement disappeared? Those questions matter more than how many people know about your plans. Because real progress is often boring. It is repetitive. It is quiet. It doesn't always produce a dramatic story. You wake up, you work, you study, you practice, you make mistakes, you correct them, you go again, and then you do it tomorrow, and the day after that. That is how transformation happens. Not through one giant moment of motivation, but through hundreds of small decisions that nobody applauds. This is why oversharing can become a form of distraction. Every time you tell someone about your plans, you create another social thread to maintain. Someone asks how it's going. Someone wants an update. Someone gives you advice. Someone asks whether you've succeeded yet. Someone reminds you of something you said months ago. Now your goal has an audience, and an audience creates pressure. You may start making decisions based on how those decisions will look, rather than whether they are actually right for you. You may continue with a bad strategy because you don't want to admit that your original plan didn't work. You may rush because you promised everyone a certain timeline. You may become afraid to change direction because changing direction would look like failure. But there is nothing wrong with changing direction. There is nothing wrong with realizing that your first plan wasn't the best plan. There is nothing wrong with taking longer than expected. Growth requires adjustment, and privacy gives you the freedom to adjust without constantly explaining yourself. Think about a sculptor working on a piece of stone. In the beginning, it doesn't look like much. There are rough edges everywhere. The shape isn't clear. If you judge the sculpture halfway through, you might think nothing valuable was being created. But the sculptor doesn't stop every few minutes to ask the crowd whether they can see the final statue. They keep working, chip by chip, cut by cut, until eventually, what was hidden inside the stone becomes visible. Your life can be like that. Right now, someone may not understand what you're doing because they are looking at the unfinished version. That's okay. You don't need to reveal the entire process. You need to keep working. There will also be moments when you feel an intense desire to tell someone about a breakthrough. Maybe you finally understand something. Maybe you've discovered a new opportunity. Maybe you've made a major decision. Maybe you've taken the first serious step toward changing your life. Pause. Ask yourself why you want to tell them. Is it because sharing will genuinely help? Or because you want validation? Do you want advice? Or do you want applause? Do you need accountability? Or do you simply want someone to confirm that you're doing something important? Learning to ask these questions can completely change the way you communicate. You don't have to become silent about everything. You don't have to isolate yourself. There are people who genuinely support you, mentors who can guide you, and trusted friends who can provide valuable perspective. Strategic silence is not about refusing all feedback. It is about choosing who deserves access. There is a difference between seeking useful guidance and seeking constant validation. One makes you stronger. The other can make you dependent. So begin protecting your momentum. When you have an idea, write it down. When you have a goal, create a plan. When you have a plan, take action. And instead of immediately telling everyone what you're going to accomplish, give yourself enough time to prove that you're serious. Let the first result come before the announcement. Let the habit become stable before you advertise it. Let the foundation become strong before you invite people inside. Because there is something deeply satisfying about achieving something that you once kept completely private. One day, people may look at your life and say, "When did all of this happen?" And you will know. It happened during the mornings nobody saw, during the nights nobody heard about, during the months when you were quietly working while everyone else assumed you were doing nothing. That is the beauty of silent progress. You don't need to constantly tell people that you're moving forward. You only need to keep moving. So stop giving your future away through words. Don't spend tomorrow's energy describing tomorrow's success. Use that energy to build it. Talk less about what you're going to become. Work more on becoming it, because when the transformation is real, you won't need to announce it. People will notice. And when they do, you'll know that the feeling you're experiencing isn't the temporary satisfaction of being praised for a plan. It's something much deeper. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that you actually did the work. Chapter 4. Protect your goals from other people's energy. Not everyone deserves to know what you're building. This may be one of the hardest lessons to accept, especially when you naturally want to share your excitement with the people around you. When something matters to you, the first instinct can be to talk about it. You want to tell your friends. You want to tell your family. You want someone to understand what you're trying to accomplish. But before you open the door and invite everyone into your plans, you need to understand something. Not every person who hears your dream will know how to handle it. Some people will encourage you. Some will question you. Some will laugh. Some will become jealous. Some will give you advice based entirely on their own fears. And some may not intentionally want to hurt you at all, but their negativity can still become a weight you carry. Imagine that you have a small flame in your hands. It's not a powerful fire yet. It's fragile. It can easily be extinguished by something as simple as a strong wind. Your early goals can be like that flame. They need protection while they are becoming strong. But if you expose them to every opinion, every criticism, every doubt, and every unnecessary conversation, you may spend more energy protecting your dream from people than actually building it. This is why you need to become selective. Not secretive selective. There is a difference. You don't need to assume that everyone is against you. You don't need to become suspicious of every person around you. And you don't need to isolate yourself from people who genuinely care about you. Instead, learn to recognize who gives you clarity and who consistently gives you confusion. Think about the different people who can enter your life when you announce a goal. There is the doubter. The moment you reveal your plan, they tell you why it probably won't work. They remind you of everything that could go wrong. They don't necessarily have a better plan. They simply have a longer list of reasons to be afraid. Then there is the mocker. They turn your ambition into a joke. They remember who you used to be and use your past to make your future look ridiculous. You say you're changing, and they laugh. You become more disciplined, and they call you obsessed. You stop participating in the habits that once kept you stuck, and suddenly you're acting different. And perhaps you are. Maybe acting different is exactly what growth looks like. Then there is the competitor. This person listens carefully. They ask questions. They want to know exactly what you're doing, where you're going, and how you're planning to get there. Sometimes competition can be healthy, but sometimes revealing too much can give someone access to information they don't need. And then there is the distracted person. They may not be negative at all. They may genuinely care about you, but every time you tell them you're trying to focus, they pull you into another conversation, another invitation, another unnecessary responsibility. They don't destroy your dream directly. They simply consume the time and attention your dream requires. And then, finally, there is the rare person. The person who doesn't need you to prove anything. They listen, they encourage, they challenge you when necessary. They respect your boundaries. They want you to succeed without needing your success to make them feel smaller. Those people are valuable. Keep them close, but understand that trust should be earned. You don't hand everyone the blueprint to your future. This doesn't mean you should become emotionally closed off. It means you should develop wisdom about what you share, when you share it, and with whom you share it. Some dreams need silence before they need witnesses. There are things you can build with the support of others, and there are things you need to build within yourself first. If your confidence depends entirely on someone else's encouragement, what happens when they stop encouraging you? If your motivation depends on everyone believing in you, what happens when someone doubts you? If your commitment depends on receiving praise, what happens when nobody notices? You need an internal source of strength. You need to be able to say, I know what I'm doing, even if nobody else understands it yet. That sentence can change your life, because the moment you stop requiring external validation, you become much harder to distract. You can walk away from conversations that don't serve you. You can stop defending your decisions. You can stop trying to prove that your goals are important. You can stop turning your life into a public debate. And instead, you can return to the work. Remember this: people can only influence you when you give their opinions more authority than your own judgment. Not every opinion deserves equal weight. Someone who has never built the thing you're trying to build may not be the best person to tell you how impossible it is. Someone who refuses to take risks may not understand why you're taking one. Someone who has never disciplined themselves may not understand why your discipline looks extreme to them. And someone who is comfortable remaining exactly where they are may not understand why you're desperate to grow. This doesn't mean you should ignore all criticism. Sometimes criticism contains wisdom. Sometimes someone sees a blind spot you cannot see yourself. The goal isn't to reject feedback. The goal is to separate useful feedback from emotional noise. Ask yourself, is this person speaking from experience? Are they trying to help me improve? Do they understand what I'm attempting to do? Have they demonstrated wisdom in this area? Or are they simply projecting their own fears onto my future? That distinction matters, because if you listen to every voice, eventually you won't hear your own. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Protect it. Your peace is valuable. Protect it. Your ambition is valuable. Protect it. Your unfinished goals are valuable. Protect them. You don't have to announce your next move to prove that you're serious. You don't have to convince everyone that you're capable. And you certainly don't have to invite everyone into a chapter they were never meant to read. Some people will meet you after the transformation. They don't need to see every step. Let them see the results. Let them see the discipline. Let them see the new life. And if they ask how you did it, you can tell them. But while you're still building, remember that silence can be a shield. Not because you're afraid of the world, but because you're focused enough to protect what you're creating. The world is loud. Opinions are everywhere. Distractions are endless. Your job is to become quiet enough to hear the direction of your own life, so protect your goals. Choose your circle carefully. Listen to wisdom. Nass unnecessary noise. And remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your future self is simply keep your plans to yourself. Because not everything growing inside you needs to be exposed before it is strong enough to stand on its own. Chapter 5. Become addicted to progress, not attention. There is a difference between wanting to succeed and needing people to see you succeed. One creates discipline, the other creates dependence. And if you want to build a life that truly belongs to you, you must learn to stop measuring your progress by the amount of attention it receives. You must become more interested in getting better than looking better. More interested in becoming than being noticed. More interested in the work than the applause that might come after it. Attention is seductive. It feels good when people notice you. It feels good when someone tells you that you're talented, disciplined, intelligent, ambitious, or destined for success. It feels good when people admire your transformation. But there is a hidden danger in becoming dependent on that feeling. Once you become accustomed to being seen, you may begin making decisions based on how they will look, instead of whether they are actually right for you. You start asking questions like, will people notice this? Will they think I'm successful? Will they be impressed? Will they recognize how hard I'm working? And slowly, your goal changes. You are no longer building your life for yourself. You are performing your life for an audience. That is a dangerous place to live, because audiences are unpredictable. Today they may praise you. Tomorrow they may ignore you. One day they may celebrate your success. The next day they may move on to someone else. If your motivation depends on attention, your motivation will always be unstable. But progress is different. Progress can happen in complete silence. You can become stronger without anyone noticing. You can become wiser without announcing it. You can become financially disciplined without posting about it. You can develop a skill for months before anyone recognizes that you're good at it. And there is something incredibly powerful about learning to enjoy that process. Imagine waking up tomorrow with no one watching, no followers, no likes, no compliments, no one asking what you're doing. Would you still work? Would you still study? Would you still exercise? Would you still save? Would you still practice? Would you still pursue the goal? If the answer is yes, you are beginning to develop something far more valuable than motivation. You are developing self-discipline. Self-discipline is what remains when excitement disappears. Anyone can work hard when everyone is cheering. The real test is whether you can continue when nobody cares. There will be mornings when you don't feel inspired. There will be nights when you question whether the effort is worth it. There will be weeks when the results are so small that you wonder whether anything is changing at all. Those are the moments that separate people who want the image of success from people who are willing to experience the process of success. Because success is rarely glamorous while it is being built. It is repetitive. It is uncomfortable. It is sometimes lonely. It requires doing the same important things long after the initial excitement has disappeared. And that's why you need to fall in love with progress itself. Celebrate the small improvements. Celebrate showing up. Celebrate keeping promises to yourself. Celebrate choosing discipline when distraction was easier. Celebrate becoming 1% better. You don't need anyone else to celebrate those things for you. You can look at yourself and know, I kept my word today. That feeling is different from receiving applause. Applause tells you that other people approve of what you did. Self-respect tells you that you are proud of what you did. And self-respect is stronger. Because when you respect yourself, you don't need to constantly prove yourself. You don't need to explain your worth. You don't need to chase validation. You simply continue. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you repeatedly do difficult things without announcing them. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to believe your own promises. When you say, I'm going to do this, you know that your words have weight because you've already proven to yourself that you follow through. That confidence cannot be purchased. It cannot be faked, and it cannot be built through motivational quotes alone. It is earned privately, one decision at a time, one difficult morning, one uncomfortable conversation, one workout, one chapter, 1 hour of focused work, one temptation resisted, one distraction ignored, one promise kept. And eventually, these small victories begin stacking on top of each other. Then something changes. You stop needing motivation because your identity has changed. You don't say, I am trying to become disciplined. You simply become someone who is disciplined. You don't say, I'm trying to focus. You become someone who protects their attention. You don't say, I'm trying to build something. You become someone who builds. That is the real goal, not to look disciplined, to become disciplined, not to look successful, to become capable, not to appear focused, to develop the ability to focus even when the world is demanding your attention. This is why you should be careful with public declarations. When you announce everything, you may unconsciously begin performing for the audience. But when you keep your work private, the only person you have to impress is yourself. And that creates freedom. You can have a terrible day and start again tomorrow. You can make a mistake and learn from it. You can change your strategy. You can move slowly. You can take your time. Nobody is waiting for your update. Nobody is demanding proof. You are simply doing the work, and then one day, something remarkable happens. The results begin speaking. People who never noticed the process suddenly notice the outcome. They see the new business. They see the new body. They see the new skill. They see the new confidence. They see the new life. And they may ask, when did you do all of this? But you know the answer. You did it while nobody was watching. You did it when there was no applause. You did it when the work was boring. You did it when the progress was invisible. You did it because you stopped needing to be seen. So from this moment forward, change what you chase. Don't chase attention. Chase mastery. Don't chase applause. Chase consistency. Don't chase recognition. Chase improvement. Don't chase the appearance of success. Build the substance of it, because attention can make you visible, but progress makes you powerful. And when you become addicted to progress rather than attention, you no longer need the world to constantly remind you that you're moving forward. You will know. You will feel it. You will see it in the person you're becoming. And eventually, the world will see it too. But by then, you won't need their approval, because you already earned your own. Chapter 6, The Silent Season. When nobody believes in you, there will be a season in your life when you are doing everything you can and almost nobody seems to notice. You wake up early. You work when you're tired. You make sacrifices that nobody sees. You turn down distractions. You learn new skills. You save money. You exercise. You read. You plan. You fail, adjust, and try again. And yet, from the outside, it may look like nothing is happening. This is what I call the silent season, the period between deciding who you want to become and actually becoming that person. The silent season can be uncomfortable because humans naturally want evidence. We want to know that our effort is working. We want progress we can see. We want someone to tell us, "You're doing great. Keep going." But meaningful transformation doesn't always provide immediate evidence. Sometimes the most important work happens beneath the surface, long before anyone can see the result. Think about a tree. For years, its roots can grow deeper before its height changes dramatically. If you only measured its progress by what was visible above the ground, you might assume nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, the foundation was becoming stronger. The same thing can happen in your life. You may think you're standing still when you're actually developing the foundation that will support everything that comes next. The problem is that during this season, people may question you. They may ask, "What are you doing with your life?" They may wonder why you aren't moving as quickly as everyone else. They may compare your progress to someone else's success. They may tell you that your efforts aren't producing enough results. And sometimes, their questions can become your questions. You start wondering, am I wasting my time? Is this really going to work? Maybe I should give up. Maybe I'm not capable. This is where you must learn to separate temporary results from permanent direction. Just because you haven't arrived doesn't mean you're going the wrong way. Just because nobody notices for your progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. And just because the results are taking longer than expected doesn't mean the work is meaningless. Some things take time because they are worth building properly. A strong body takes time. A valuable skill takes time. A successful business takes time. Financial stability takes time. Emotional maturity takes time. Character takes time. You cannot rush every transformation simply because you are impatient to see the outcome. And this is where moving in silence becomes so powerful. When you stop expecting everyone to recognize your progress, you become much more comfortable with the process itself. You stop looking around for confirmation. You stop asking whether anyone believes in you. You begin asking a better question. Do I believe enough in what I'm building to continue when nobody else does? That question changes everything, because there will be moments when you have to carry your own belief, not forever, but long enough to build evidence, long enough to develop competence, long enough for the results to catch up with the vision. This is why you cannot allow temporary disbelief from other people to become permanent disbelief in yourself. Someone else's doubt is not a prophecy. Someone else's opinion is not your destiny. Someone else's inability to imagine your future does not determine whether you can create it. You must be careful, though, not to confuse confidence with stubbornness. Moving in silence does not mean refusing to learn. It doesn't mean ignoring every warning. It doesn't mean assuming that everyone who disagrees with you is jealous or negative. Real strength includes the ability to listen. Listen to useful criticism. Listen to people with experience. Listen when reality gives you feedback, but don't surrender your entire vision simply because someone doesn't understand it. There is a difference between correction and discouragement. Correction helps you become better. Discouragement tells you to stop becoming. Learn the difference. The silent season is also where your identity begins to change. At first, you are working toward a goal. Eventually, the work begins changing who you are. You become more patient, more disciplined, more resilient, more selective with your time. You begin saying no without feeling guilty. You stop needing constant entertainment. You stop needing everyone to approve of your choices. And slowly, you become someone you can trust. That may be the greatest reward of the entire journey. Not the money, not the recognition, not the status. The ability to look at yourself and know, when I say I'm going to do something, I follow through. That kind of self-trust is built in silence. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can buy it for you. Nobody can create it for you. You earn it every time you keep a promise to yourself. So if you're currently in a season where nobody seems to believe in you, don't panic. You don't need to prove everything today. You don't need to show everyone your progress. You don't need to convince the people who doubt you. Keep building, keep learning, keep adjusting. Keep showing up. One day, the things that feel invisible today may become the very things people admire tomorrow. The discipline nobody noticed will become the success they notice. The sacrifices nobody understood will become the freedom they see. The quiet nights nobody witnessed will become the results they ask about. And when that day comes, remember this season. Remember when nobody was watching. Remember when the results were invisible. Remember when you had to believe before you had evidence, because that was not wasted time. That was the construction phase. That was where the foundation was built. That was where you became stronger. And perhaps one of the greatest advantages you can have in life is learning to become comfortable in that invisible stage, to work without applause, to grow without recognition, to continue without guarantees, to believe without needing constant reassurance. Because the people who can survive the silent season are often the people who are prepared for the season when everyone finally starts paying attention. So don't be discouraged by the silence. Use it, let it sharpen you, let it discipline you. Let it teach you patience. Let it remind you that your worth is not determined by how quickly other people notice you. Your job is not to be seen. Your job is to become. And when you finally emerge from the silent season, you won't need to announce that you've changed. People will feel it. They will see it. They will hear it in the way you speak. They will notice it in the way you carry yourself. They will recognize it in the decisions you make. And most importantly, you will recognize it in yourself. Because the person who entered the silence will not be the same person who walks out of it. Chapter 7. Build in private, reveal in public. There comes a moment when silence must turn into action. Moving in silence was never about hiding from the world forever. It was about giving yourself enough space to build without distraction, without unnecessary pressure, and without the constant need to explain every step. You don't stay invisible because you're afraid to be seen. You stay quiet because you're busy becoming someone worth noticing. And when the time is right, you don't need to announce the transformation. You simply allow the results to appear. Think about the difference between announcing a goal and completing a goal. An announcement is a promise about the future. A result is evidence from the present. Anyone can say, I'm going to build something. Anyone can say, I'm going to change my life. Anyone can describe the person they want to become. But when the work is finally finished, there is nothing left to explain. The evidence is standing in front of everyone. That is the power of building in private. You can begin quietly. You can make mistakes quietly. You can learn quietly. You can change your strategy quietly. You can fail and start again without having to explain your failures to an audience. You can take 1 step forward, 2 steps backward, and then find your way forward again. Nobody needs to know every detail of the process because your journey belongs to you. You don't owe the world a daily report of your progress. You don't owe your friends an explanation for every decision. You don't owe social media proof that you're working hard. Your responsibility is to the work, and this is where many people lose their advantage. They become so focused on documenting the process that they forget to experience it. They spend more time showing people what they're doing than actually doing it. They announce every new habit. They post every new goal. They talk about every new opportunity. They constantly tell the world, "This is my new chapter." But a new chapter isn't created by announcing it. It is created by living differently. If you're serious about becoming disciplined, don't announce your new routine. Follow it. If you're serious about becoming financially stable, don't announce your financial goals. Make the sacrifices. If you're serious about building a business, don't spend all your energy talking about the business. Build the product. Serve the customer. Learn the market. Make the mistakes. Improve the system. If you're serious about becoming healthier, don't worry about convincing people that you've changed. Change your habits. The world doesn't need another announcement. It needs evidence, and evidence takes time. This is why patience becomes such an important part of moving in silence. You must be willing to let the process take as long as it takes. You cannot rush a transformation simply because you are desperate for recognition. A tree doesn't grow faster because people are standing around watching it. A book doesn't become finished because you tell everyone you're writing it. A skill doesn't become mastered because you announce that you're learning it. The work still has to happen. Quietly, repeatedly, consistently, and eventually, there is a moment when private effort becomes public reality. That is when the relationship between silence and success becomes so powerful. For months, perhaps years, nobody sees the full picture. They only see fragments. They see you waking up early. They see you becoming more selective. They notice that you don't go out as much. They notice that you're spending more time alone. They may even wonder what happened to you. But they don't see the complete picture. They don't see the books you've read. They don't see the skills you've developed. They don't see the opportunities you've rejected because they didn't align with your goal. They don't see the mistakes you've made and corrected. They don't see the nights you wanted to quit, but continued anyway. And then one day, the results become visible. The business launches. The degree is completed. The body changes. The debt disappears. The skill becomes mastery. The project becomes real. The dream becomes reality. And suddenly, people notice. They may say, "You've changed." They may ask, "When did you do this?" They may say, "I didn't know you were working on that." And that's the moment when you understand why silence was valuable. You weren't trying to surprise anyone. You were trying to protect your focus. You weren't trying to make people curious. You were trying to make progress. You weren't hiding. You were building. There is an important distinction between these two things. Hiding is avoiding the world because you're afraid of judgment. Building in private is choosing where your attention goes because your future matters more than temporary recognition. One comes from fear, the other comes from discipline. And once you understand that difference, you stop feeling guilty for being quiet. You stop feeling obligated to update everyone. You stop worrying that people will think you've disappeared. Let them wonder. Your life doesn't need to be continuously explained while it is being constructed. Sometimes, disappearing from the noise is exactly what allows you to hear yourself again. And when you finally reveal what you've built, let the reveal be natural. Don't exaggerate it. Don't spend hours explaining how hard it was. Don't list every sacrifice you made. You don't need to. Let the work speak. Let the outcome speak. Let the transformation speak. Because the strongest evidence is often the simplest. A finished project. A changed life. a new level of discipline, a stronger mind, a healthier body, a more peaceful existence. A person who no longer needs validation. That is success speaking without words. And there is something deeply satisfying about that kind of success. Not because you proved the doubters wrong, but because you proved something to yourself. You proved that you could keep going without applause. You proved that you could work without recognition. You proved that you could remain committed even when nobody knew what you were doing. You proved that your motivation did not depend on an audience. That is the real victory. So don't rush to reveal everything. Build first. Strengthen the foundation. Improve the process. Develop the skill. Become the person capable of carrying the success you're asking for. Then, when the time comes, open the door, step into the light, and let the world see what silence was creating. Because the goal was never to disappear forever. The goal was to disappear long enough to become undeniable. Build private. Prepare in private. Grow in private. And, when the results are ready, reveal them without explanation. Let success make the announcement. Chapter 8. The Art of Strategic Silence. Silence becomes powerful when it is intentional. Anyone can become quiet because they are hurt, afraid, angry, or exhausted. But strategic silence is different. It is the conscious decision to stop giving your energy to things that do not move your life forward. It is knowing when to speak, when to listen, when to explain, and when to simply keep moving. Strategic silence is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming selective. You don't have to tell everyone your next move. You don't have to reveal every goal while it is still taking shape. You don't have to explain every decision to people who aren't responsible for the consequences. And you don't have to respond to every opinion that comes your way. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. The first rule of strategic silence is simple. Speak less about your next move. Not every decision needs an announcement. If you're changing your career, you don't need to tell everyone before you've made the transition. If you're starting a business, you don't need to reveal every detail before you've built the foundation. If you're working on yourself, you don't need to constantly announce your transformation. Let the work happen before the announcement. The second rule is, stop seeking permission. There will always be someone who thinks your idea is too risky, too ambitious, too strange, or too difficult. If you wait for everyone to approve your decisions, you may spend your entire life standing at the starting line. Advice can be valuable, but permission is different. Advice gives you perspective. Permission gives someone else control over a decision that belongs to you. You can listen without surrendering your judgment. You can respect someone without obeying their opinion. You can love someone without allowing them to determine your future. The third rule is, protect your attention. Your attention is not unlimited. Every conversation, notification, argument, comparison, and distraction takes something from you. And when you are building something important, small distractions can become expensive. Imagine trying to write an important book while checking your phone every 5 minutes. You may still spend hours at your desk, but your mind is constantly being pulled somewhere else. The same thing happens when you allow too many people into your plans. Their opinions stay in your head long after the conversation ends. You begin replaying what they said. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should change my plan. Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should do what they suggested. And suddenly, you're no longer listening to your own judgment. Protecting your attention means creating space where your thoughts can become clear. Sometimes you need to step away from the noise long enough to hear what you actually believe. The fourth rule is, let consistency become your identity. Don't tell people you're disciplined. Become disciplined. Don't tell people you're focused. Become focused. Don't tell people you're changing. Challenge. The more you rely on words to describe who you are, the less necessary those words become. When your behavior starts proving them, real discipline is repetitive. It doesn't always feel exciting. It doesn't need an audience. It simply happens. You do the work because that's who you've decided to become. The fifth rule is, keep your biggest goals private while they are still fragile. Not every dream needs to be exposed immediately. Some ideas are still developing. Some goals are still uncertain. Some plans require experimentation. And that's okay. You are allowed to have unfinished thoughts. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to try something and discover that it isn't right for you. Privacy gives you room to experiment without feeling like you're disappointing an audience. The sixth rule is, don't argue with doubters. This may be one of the hardest rules to follow. When someone says you can't do something, your instinct may be to prove them wrong immediately. You want to explain your reasoning. You want to show them your plan. You want to convince them that they don't understand. But think about how much energy that requires, and what do you gain? Maybe they say, okay, I understand. But tomorrow, someone else will doubt you. Then another person. Then another. If you make proving people wrong your source of motivation, you will spend your life chasing people who don't believe in you. Instead, build because the goal matters to you. Let your results answer the question. You don't need to win every argument. You need to win the battle for your own attention. The seventh rule is perhaps the most difficult. Be comfortable with being misunderstood. Growth can make you look strange to people who are comfortable with your old identity. When you stop participating in certain habits, people may say you're different. When you stop going out as often, they may think you're becoming boring. When you become more serious about your future, they may say you've changed. And again, maybe you have. You are supposed to change. The purpose of growth is to become someone different from who you were before. You cannot build a new life while remaining completely committed to your old identity. Some people will understand, some won't. You don't have to force understanding. You can simply keep moving. Strategic silence also means knowing that not every question deserves a complete answer. Someone asks, "What's your plan?" You don't always need to give them the entire blueprint. Sometimes, "I'm working on something" is enough. Someone asks, "Why are you doing things differently?" You can simply say, "I have some goals I'm focused on." Someone asks, "When will you finish?" You can say, "When it's ready." There is freedom in not turning every private decision into a public conversation. And there is another powerful lesson here. Silence creates mystery, but mystery should never be the goal. Don't become quiet just to make people curious. Become quiet because your attention matters. Don't hide your plans because you want people to wonder what you're doing. Protect them because you want to do the work properly. Don't stop explaining because you want to appear powerful. Stop explaining because you no longer need approval to trust your own direction. That is the difference between performance and maturity. The mature person doesn't need to make every decision visible. They understand that some things are more valuable when they are protected. So, ask yourself today, what am I talking about too much? Which goals am I announcing before I've built them? Whose opinion am I allowing to influence me more than it should? Where am I spending energy trying to prove myself? And what could happen if I redirected all of that energy toward execution? Imagine taking every hour you spend explaining your future and putting it into creating that future. Every conversation you don't need to have becomes time to work. Every argument you don't need to win becomes energy you can keep. Every announcement you don't make becomes another opportunity to quietly improve. That is strategic silence. It is not passive. It is focused. It is disciplined. It is deliberate. And eventually, you reach a point where you no longer feel the need to announce what you're doing. You simply do it. You stop chasing attention. You stop defending your choices. You stop trying to convince everyone. You become comfortable with the silence. And in that silence, something remarkable happens. Your actions become louder. Your discipline becomes visible. Your results become undeniable. And your life begins speaking a language that requires no explanation. So speak when your words create value. Listen when someone offers wisdom. Remain silent when explanation would only create noise. And above all, protect the direction of your life. Because sometimes silence isn't the absence of power. Sometimes silence is what power looks like before the results arrive. Chapter 9. Let your results make the announcement. There comes a moment when you no longer need to explain what you've been doing. The work has reached a point where it can speak for itself. The months of discipline, the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, the failures, the lessons, and the quiet decisions have finally become visible. And when that moment arrives, you realize something powerful. You never needed to convince anyone. You only needed to keep going. For a long time, people may not understand what you're doing. They may see you becoming quieter and assume you've lost your ambition. They may see you spending less time socializing and assume you're isolating yourself. They may notice that you're no longer seeking attention and wonder why you've changed. But they don't see the full picture. They don't see the work happening behind closed doors. They don't see the hours you spent learning. They don't see the sacrifices you made. They don't see the moments when you almost gave up, but decided to continue. And that's okay. They don't need to see it. Your results will eventually tell the story. Imagine someone who spends years saying, "One day I'm going to build something meaningful." Everyone hears the promise. Everyone hears the ambition, but nothing changes. Now imagine another person who says almost nothing. They disappear into their work. They learn. They fail. They improve. They keep going. Months later, something exists that didn't exist before. Which person made the stronger statement? The second one. Not because they spoke better, because they produced evidence. This is the difference between intention and achievement. Intention lives in the mind. Achievement exists in reality. Intention can inspire you, but only execution can transform your circumstances. So stop worrying about whether people understand your plans. Build something they can understand without an explanation. If you're building a business, let the business speak. If you're developing a skill, let your ability speak. If you're becoming financially disciplined, let your stability speak. If you're improving your health, let your strength speak. If you're becoming mentally stronger, let your behavior speak. If you're building a better life, let the life itself speak. You don't have to tell people, "Look how much I've changed." They will notice. They will notice that you no longer react to everything. They will notice that you don't chase attention. They will notice that you are more confident without being louder. They will notice that you have direction. They will notice that you are no longer desperate to be understood. And perhaps the most powerful transformation will be the one that nobody else can see. The transformation inside you. You will know how difficult it was. You will remember the nights when you had doubts. You will remember the days when progress felt invisible. You will remember the moments when quitting would have been easier. And because you remember those moments, your success will mean more to you than anyone else's applause ever could. This is why you should never build your life merely to prove your doubters wrong. If your entire motivation is revenge, then your doubters still control you. You're still thinking about them, you're still reacting to them, you're still allowing their opinion to determine your direction. True freedom is different. You build because you believe in the life you're creating. You succeed because you want to become capable. You grow because you refuse to remain trapped in an old version of yourself. And when the results arrive, you don't need to look around and ask, "Did they see me?" You simply look at your life and know. You did it. The person who once talked about changing has changed. The person who once dreamed about freedom has built it. The person who once needed approval no longer needs it. That is the real victory. And remember, results don't always mean money, status, or public recognition. Sometimes the greatest result is peace. Sometimes it's waking up without anxiety about what everyone else thinks. Sometimes it's having the discipline to walk away from what no longer serves you. Sometimes it's becoming financially responsible. Sometimes it's having the courage to start again. Sometimes success is simply becoming someone you respect. Those results may not make headlines, but they can completely change your life. So don't underestimate quiet victories. The world may celebrate visible achievements, but your most important victories may happen where nobody can see them. You resisted the temptation. You kept the promise. You finished the project. You walked away from the distraction. You chose the difficult path. You continued. And every one of those decisions became part of the person you are becoming. One day, someone may look at you and say, "You got lucky." They won't know the full story. They may only see the final chapter. They won't see the thousands of pages that came before it. And you don't have to correct them. You don't need to explain every sacrifice. You don't need to list every difficult night. You don't need to prove how hard you worked. Let them believe whatever they want. You know the truth. You know what it took. You know how many times you had to begin again. And that knowledge is enough. So keep your plans quiet. Keep your standards high. Keep your attention focused. Keep doing the work. Because eventually, there will come a day when the person you once talked about becoming is simply the person you are. And on that day, you won't need an announcement. You won't need permission. You won't need applause. You won't need to say, "I told you so." You will simply stand there, look at what you've built, and understand the power of every silent decision that brought you there. Let people talk. Let people doubt. Let people underestimate you. Your job is not to control their opinions. Your job is to control your actions. And when your results finally become visible, let them speak louder than anything you could have said. Because words can create expectations. Promises can create curiosity. Announcements can create attention. But results create belief. So don't announce your success before you've earned it. Earn it first. Build it first. Become it first. Then let the world discover it. That is the power of moving in silence. You don't chase the moment when everyone finally believes in you. You become the evidence they can no longer ignore. Final chapter: disappear. Build. Return different. There comes a time when you have to step away from the noise. Not because you are afraid of the world, not because you have given up, and not because you have nothing to say. You step a step because you finally understand that the life you want requires more of your attention than the world deserves. There are seasons when you need to become quieter. You need to stop explaining. You need to stop announcing every goal, every decision, every new beginning. You need to return to yourself and ask one simple question. What would happen if I stopped talking about my future and started building it? Imagine what could change if you spent less time telling people what you were going to do and more time actually doing it. Imagine taking every conversation about your future and turning it into an hour of work. Every argument you don't need to win becomes energy you can keep. Every opinion you don't need to respond to becomes another distraction you can avoid. Every announcement you don't make gives you another opportunity to quietly improve. You begin to understand that silence is not emptiness. Silence is space, space to think, space to plan, space to heal, space to learn, space to build. And sometimes that space is exactly what you have been missing. You have spent enough time trying to convince people that you are capable. You have spent enough time explaining your choices to people who were never going to understand them. You have spent enough time worrying about what people think of your journey. Now it's time to work. Not loudly, not desperately, not for applause. Simply work. Wake up and do what needs to be done. When nobody is watching, do it. When nobody compliments you, do it. When progress feels slow, do it. When motivation disappears, do it. When someone doubts you, keep going. When someone misunderstands you, keep going. When nobody believes in you yet, learn to believe through your actions. Because belief becomes stronger when you give yourself evidence. Every promise you keep becomes evidence. Every difficult decision becomes evidence. Every distraction you resist becomes evidence. Every time you get back up becomes evidence. You are building a relationship with yourself. And that relationship matters more than the opinions of people who only see a small part of your life. There may be people who knew you before you changed. They may continue to see you through the lens of your past. Let them. You don't have to drag them into your future. You don't have to convince them that you've changed. You don't have to force them to understand. Growth does not require an audience. You can become better quietly. You can become wiser quietly. You can become stronger quietly. You can rebuild your life quietly. And when the transformation is complete, you may realize that you no longer care who noticed the process, because you noticed. You know how far you've come. You know who you were before. You know what it took to get here, and that knowledge creates a confidence that applause cannot provide. So perhaps this is your season to disappear, not from life, but from unnecessary noise. Disappear from the need to be constantly seen. Disappear from the need to explain every decision. Disappear from the habit of announcing unfinished goals. Disappear from conversations that drain your ambition. Disappear from comparison. Disappear from the pressure to prove yourself and return to the work. Return to discipline. Return to your purpose. Return to the things that actually matter. There will be a temptation to tell everyone when something good happens. There will be a temptation to announce every breakthrough. There will be a temptation to show people that the person they underestimated is finally succeeding. But remember this, you don't need revenge. You need results. You don't need to make your doubters feel small. You need to become strong enough that their opinions no longer control you. You don't need to prove that they were wrong. You need to prove to yourself that you were right to keep going. And perhaps one day, you will look back at this chapter of your life and realize that the silence was not punishment. It was preparation. The loneliness was not always rejection. Sometimes it was protection. The lack of recognition was not failure. It was an opportunity to build without needing applause. The slow progress was not wasted time. It was the foundation. Everything you were doing when nobody was watching was shaping the person everyone would eventually see. So don't rush the process. Don't dig up the seed just because you cannot see the roots. Don't abandon the journey because the results haven't arrived on your preferred schedule. Keep watering, keep working, keep learning, keep becoming. Your future does not need your announcement. It needs your commitment. And now, before this audiobook ends, make a promise to yourself. From this moment forward, you will stop giving your future away through words. You will speak less about what you're going to do and do more of it. You will protect your goals. You will protect your attention. You will protect your peace. You will stop seeking permission from people who cannot see your vision. You will listen to wisdom without becoming controlled by opinions. You will accept being misunderstood when necessary. You will work when nobody is watching. You will continue when progress is invisible. And when success finally arrives, you will let it speak for itself. Say it quietly to yourself. I don't need everyone to understand me. I don't need everyone to believe in me. I don't need to announce every move. I will build in silence. I will remain disciplined. I will protect my energy. I will keep my promises to myself. I will become the person I said I wanted to be. And when the results arrive, I will let them speak. Because the world is full of people who talk about what they are going to do. Be different. Be the person who does it. Let others announce. You execute. Let others seek attention. You seek mastery. Let others explain. You demonstrate. Let others make promises. You create evidence. And when the time is right, step out of the silence, not with a speech, not with an explanation, not with a desperate need to be recognized. Simply return different, stern, stronger, return wiser, return disciplined, return with something real. Because the most powerful transformation is not the one you announce. It is the one people discover. So go quietly, build patiently, work relentlessly, protect what matters, and remember, you do not have to tell people what you're building. You do not have to convince them who you're becoming. You do not have to announce your next chapter. Disappear into the work. Let time pass. Let discipline compound. Let the transformation happen. And one day, when the results finally stand where the promises once were, say nothing. Let success speak, because sometimes the loudest statement you can make is the life you quietly built when nobody was watching. If this audiobook spoke to something inside you, don't just listen to it and move on. Take one idea from these 30 minutes and make it part of your life. Stop announcing every move. Stop explaining every decision. Stop seeking approval for a future that hasn't arrived yet. Protect your energy. Protect your focus. And most importantly, protect the work. If you're entering a season where you're choosing discipline over attention, privacy over approval, and progress over applause, write, "I am building in silence" in the comments. Let those words be a promise to yourself, not to the world. And if this message gave you a new perspective, take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more powerful audiobooks on self-discipline, psychology, personal growth, confidence, focus, and success. Save this audiobook and come back to it whenever you feel the urge to explain yourself, announce your plans, or prove someone wrong. Remember, you don't need to tell people what you're building. Build it. You don't need to tell people you're changing. Challenge. You don't need to tell people you're becoming successful to become successful. And when the results finally arrive, let them speak for you. Work in silence. Grow in silence. Become in silence. Then let your life make the announcement.